Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another session of Brand Equity Presents Digital Dialogues powered by CleverTap. Our topic of discussion today is Rethinking Fintech, Building Customer Hooks for Digital World. As you all must be aware, digital dependency when it comes to financial needs has leapfrogged. With it, what has also grown manifold is the churn. 73% of new fintech app users churn within 7 days. This figure is astronomical and something that is ought to keep the custodians of fintech consumer brands awake at night. How can fintech leaders of India crack the code to build customer hooks for the digital world? Let's learn from the leaders of the fintech industry who have been there and done that. Join me in welcoming my esteemed panel for the day. Anand Bhatia, CMO, Fino Payments Bank. Welcome, Anand.
Hey, welcome. Thanks.
Ramalingam Subramanian, Head of Brand and Communication, Coinbox. Welcome, Ram. Good to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much, Anirban. Pleasure.
Mr. Deepak Oram, Head Marketing Technology and Automation, HDFC Bank. Hello, Deepak.
Thank you, Anirban. Good to be here.
Aishwarya Murali, Head of Marketing, Zest Money. Hi, Aishwarya. And Mr. Rahul Lakhani, Head BFSI at CleverTap.
Hi, Anirban. Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. It's definitely going to be informative, to say the least. Before we get into the core of our discussion, I would like to throw a rapid fire question at my panelists. I know we are up here for a very serious discussion, but let's start on a lighter note. My question to all of you, and we'll start with you, Anand. When you interacted with a fintech platform for the first time, what was the motivating factor? Was it curiosity, rewards, or cashback? I want a one-word answer from you.
It depends on what you call fintech, but curiosity definitely, because by nature that's what I am. So there's always that, hey, what's new out there? So I was amongst those, I don't know how many number of people who quickly started scanning whatever Dunzo had put as a QR code during the IPL. So it's a good rip-off from the Super Bowl. So it definitely been curiosity.
Yes, I hope Coinbase executives don't chase us here. Ram, your answer to it. First time you interacted with a fintech platform, what was the motivating factor?
Curiosity. Something that you have known. So I come from a banking family. So it's
curiosity.
How it works. So something new comes up. It's always interesting.
Great. Deepak, your answer of it?
To make a living, I used to sell a bunch of stuff on PayPal some 20 years back internationally. So yeah, it was good pocket change. So curiosity and a need for income.
Great. Need for income. Good one. Thank you, Deepak. Aishwarya, your answer, the first time interaction with the fintech platform.
Curiosity for sure. FMCG marketer for ages, so fintech is completely new to me. So it was curiosity, 100%.
Definitely. Rahul, your answer.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of repetition, it's the same, right? I've always been a geek. I've always been a tech aficionado. So anytime a new service is launched, I'm very curious to know what's going on. So curiosity for sure.
Great. I saw I can go to Maldives by using Cred, and I downloaded Cred shamelessly, but I never went to Maldives. Rahul, I'll stay with you with the second question. Again, a rapid fire one. Do you remember downloading an app immediately after watching an ad? Downloading an app immediately after watching an ad, as I did with Cred.
I don't think so. No, I don't think it's ever happened with me.
No. Okay, great. Anand, did you download an app immediately after watching an ad?
No, but once I figured a particular delivery app had started in my locality, I figured, I guess within 30 seconds I had that app.
Great, 30 seconds. Wow, instant action. Ram, did you happen to download an app immediately after watching an ad?
Yeah, because I could not understand the ad, so that drove the curiosity. What's all about? So I had to download.
Wow, so complicated ads work at times. Great, Aishwarya, did you happen to download an app immediately, after watching an ad?
Not that I recall, honestly. My download of an app is purely need-based. So I have a need and then I check. I usually check ratings on the store and download it. So not impulsive app downloader basis communication. Not that kind of a person.
Great. Deepak, what about you? Do you download an
I guess
app?
I'm the exception all the time. I look at an ad and then I'm very curious to see what the app is about. So all the time.
Yeah, even I did that. Thank you very much for the warm participation in the rapid fire session. Now I would like to have opening remarks from each one of you. Again, starting with you, Anand. With customers going digital first, what are the key changes that you have observed in user behavior in your particular industry?
So I just spent a few seconds on literally my industry. So the folks out here, my consumer is probably the least digital. As I always tell, imagine a bus stop in the middle of nowhere in Darbhanga in Bihar. There's a guy selling chai pakoda samosas. That's my customer, and his bank is the local telecom shop, probably 20 meters away. So least digital. But again, the changes that we've been noticing over the last few years is that same consumption of reels. When these guys are addicted. Earlier it was TikTok and now it'll be Instagram reels. So that there's something really, really, huge out there. Very good use of Twitter to complain. So they've kind of cracked the code that if you go onto social media and put a complaint, it is going to get solved. Otherwise, there's always going to be a challenge. Increasing willingness to pay. So this consumer, more than anybody else, also realizes that for value you pay. I guess the only absolutely spoiled lot are the yo cool dudes in Ghatkopar and Koramangala and all who have figured that everything has to be given to them free, so nobody makes money on them. I think the big change, I think, is willingness to experiment, which is a sign of growing confidence. I think this is something that I've definitely seen happening to this consumer back in the middle of nowhere in Darbhanga.
Great. Thank you, Anand, for your opening remarks. I'll now go to Ram. Ram, your view on what has changed in the users of your industry?
Quite contrary to Anand, very digital. Right? One of the things has to be digital. But yeah, I resonate with what Anand is saying. A lot of I see the same kind of behavior changes, behavior improvements. But for us, we are fairly new. We haven't, as an industry, we haven't seen phases. So we are fairly new, and perhaps we are riding that wave today. So for me, it's not necessarily a change, but that's the first customer introduction for us, right? But yeah, very much similar. However, one thing that I would say is that for a lot of our customers, we were the first choice when it came to thinking around wealth, thinking around investments, because of the nature of the industry, because of the abilities that we had, because of the unregulated nature of the space, we were able to penetrate much better. And I'm talking from an advertising marketing perspective. And that's became the first choice for a lot. So I think that helped us discover new segments. And I feel that's slightly a change between what you would have seen normally and for us, what we are experiencing.
Great. Deepak, you have, your industry has a long history of interaction with customers. What has changed, with this advent of digital among the users of your particular industry? Sorry, I'll move to you. Your comments on the changes that you have witnessed because of the advent of digital in your industry.
So I think fintech has seen big leaps and growths in the last 3 to 5 years on the digital front, right? It's been accelerated by quite a few things, not all consumer. Of course, there was always a latent need, which is clearly emerging. Great. So I think COVID was that big grand accelerator, right, of touchless payments, just digital finance. Overnight, we had to pay everybody through, contactless payment methods. And this sort of just, I think, accelerated the entire industry forward. That was a big macro change that happened as a result of which consumer change happened. The second was, I think, fintech has been it's been good. There's the amount of liberalization, the amount of the RBI intervention that has happened in order to democratize, digital finance has also been great, like high in the last 3 to 5 years, which has also accelerated this entire pace. And I think inherently then the consumers need, and of course Reliance geo penetration of, you have close to 500 million smartphones in the country. That is actually become FMCG now. I think the new FMCG is smartphones today. So I think and the connections, the 4G connections are penetrating across, whether it's Raipur or Darbhanga, like we're talking about. I think those are the three big factors which have amped up digital finance. That's one. And I think the second is also finance hitherto before that had been a slightly more archaic industry where, the divide between the haves and the have-nots were slightly higher, right? If you had a credit card option, you would have 15 credit card options, or else you would not have access to credit at all, right? So I think this entire digital finance empowered by these three macro factors, and the fact that there's always been a latent need between the haves and have-nots. I think this is what has sort of amped up, the whether it is the Pay 3 revolution or the digital finance revolution, or democratizing the world of the privileged few to the everyone else kind of a thing. I think this is sort of what I see has happened in fintech. It's like grown leaps and bounds, I feel, in the last.
Absolutely. The inclusion is one of the reasons why it has grown leaps and bounds, as Aishwarya mentions. I'll go to Rahul, but before that, I think we have Deepak back with us. Deepak wanted to understand, the advent of digital, how has that changed, or how has the consumer behavior in your industry changed because of digital?
Website traffic keeps on growing year after year, right? But there's a slight skew, right? So if you see the top tier 1 cities, there are about 6 of them defined by the census in India. That traffic grew at about 12-13% in the last year compared to the previous year, right? If you take the remaining of non-tier 1 cities, that grew by about 23%. Right? You see the rest of catching up, right? When it comes to people looking for financial services. And these are people who are spread all over the country across various regions, right? Because HDFC Bank is a large enough brand, the presence can be felt everywhere. So you can see the India that probably was not transacting digitally online and externally at a faster rate than the metros, right? So that to me is a very, very interesting one. And of course, it opens up opportunities for companies to service customers, which they could not earlier. And coming to behavior, a lot of the customers who come actually spend a lot of time on our digital interfaces, as high as 10-15 minutes. So people are looking at finance as more of a exploratory aspect of their daily lives, rather than thinking of it as something you go once in a few years to a bank or to an NBFC and get it done for your home loan, or so for your loan or for your car. Right? That thinking has heavily gone away. People transact a lot more. People are looking for financial solutions throughout the year, and not once in every few years. I think that is, to me, the biggest change that has happened. And of course, it is because of a lot of innovation around fintechs, new organizations, disruptors coming in, who are making finance seem like a daily activity rather than something you do once every few years.
Correct. Rahul, you have been interacting with multiple brands, in your view, how has the consumer behavior changed because of the advent of digital and, this increasing inclusion as Aishwarya mentioned?
Yeah, it's obviously there's a lot of change all around us, right? I mean, it's on multiple axes. We are seeing all kinds of change in user behavior. We've obviously got a view across the industry where we see many of our clients who are in different verticals of fintech or in BFSI who are, constantly coming and putting more challenges on the table, saying, hey, you know what, this is what our user is doing, but we don't know how to react to it, or this is why there's a challenge. Now, I think the biggest question we keep hearing from all our customers or our clients and all our partners is, how can we give our customers a delightful experience, but yet not invade too much on privacy, right? So that's been a kind of like a blend of old world and new, right? Because users are still asking to be sort of given their space and not being data being secure and all of that, but at the same time give me a very contextual experience when I'm using your platform. So for us, I think that's the view that we are getting in terms of how can we balance the need of the customer to be private and secure, and at the same time the user to be given a delightful experience, right? That's the kind of demand that we see from our clients and what change we are noticing.
Great. You mentioned about contextual, and that's where I would like Aishwarya to come in. How do you ensure that you are adequately personalizing the communication and end user experience, both of which are equally important nowadays?
So I think that there are 2 or 3 vectors that we can look at to personalize, right? I mean, it's of course like a matrix, right? So one there is a need versus a want matrix. So what are people using digital finance for? Of course, there will be need based, there'll be want based, but you'll also see a consumer trend emerging that is being used for want based and slightly more discretionary expenses versus need based kind of a thing. I think that's one vector we can definitely slice our consumers into. I think the second vector that's possible is, and what we've seen, right? The demarcation between gadgetry versus fashion versus travel versus technology, and gadgetry technology being the same thing. But really, these are the 3-4 big sectors in which spending is happening today. But the way you talk to a consumer who is consuming fashion is very different, from a consumer who's transacting for travel and gadgetry as well, right? So you can clearly see the differences between the three. A shopper on Nykaa who wants to max out the sale is different from somebody who wants to do a one or two times in a year kind of a vacation on travel. So that's another vector which is actually much more intuitive, to sort of look at segmenting consumers. I think the third is, the third is really the ticket sizes, which is, the more AOV, average ticket sizes zone that we operate in. So how do we talk to consumers who consume very frequently with lower ticket sizes versus people who consume maybe 3 or 4 times in a year, not that frequently, but with higher ticket sizes and wants to make digital finance work meaningfully for them. I think this is how we sort of try to segment our consumers. And then there is always the inside out context, right? I mean, all of the others are outside in context, but the inside out context is really who is your loyal customer and how do you talk to them differently versus somebody who is loyal to digital finance but not loyal to you. How do you get them into the fold? So I think those are the ways in which we can sort of personalize, and we are down the path of personalizing communication on these fronts to consumers, because for sure it's not a one size fits all. And I think the underlying theme to all of this is that digital finance is not a thing in itself, right? Digital finance is a means at the end of the day for a consumer to access a particular lifestyle. And if the nub of the problem is the lifestyle that the consumer wants to access, and if we talk to them in that fashion, we are in a state to garner much more success than thinking of digital finance as a means. As an end in itself. It's not really right. It's a means to an end.
Right. Great insights, Aishwarya. Deepak, would like to know from you, at the very beginning, I mentioned this 73% churn. Why do you think this happens? And at HDFC, how do you tackle this problem?
So I think it's for fintechs who are coming in and giving in a newer financial proposition, right? Where people are not used to it. I think the 70% churn is possible. I'm not an expert, but I think it seems like that might be possible. We also have to work very hard on keeping customers active, right? You cannot just say you come open an account and then not talk to them ever again and not tell them about the benefits of parking money with HDFC Bank. Not talk to them about different offers they will get if they use our debit card when they open an account, so on and so forth, right? So it's not so much of a churn issue in banking. It's more of a dormancy issue in banking. You will open the account, but you'll never put money in it. Either way, for an organization, that is not a good thing to have, right? So that's typically what we tackle, and that's where we depend on a lot of informational stuff. A lot of activation. Have a 30, 60, 90 plan for onboarding. What are the features that you should use? Is a special offer for your salary account for your organization? You open an account with HDFC Bank, so on and so forth. So it's a lot of information. It's a lot of cajoling and educating customers to make them bank with us and be their preferred choice. It's of course tough work, but yeah, the bottom line, dormancy is the problem. In banks rather than uninstall of the apps. But yeah, the problem is largely education, personalization, outreach with relevant information that make them active with us.
Correct. Outreach with relevant, information. At the same time, don't over personalize would probably be the mantra. Anand, would like to know from you. I mean, at Fino Payments, how do you define happy digital user? What are the key components or parameters that you have set for delivering such an experience, and at each stage of the funnel?
So, see, for us, we've made our definition very, very simple. Anyone who's coming in and transacting repeatedly is happy with our services, or a particular aspect of our service that works for him or her. So we've kept it as simple as that. Yes, there are other interesting ways like Net Promoter Score or any other such parameter which also tells you the guy is happy. But usage, or then the absence of happiness, which is churn, becomes a very, very good figuring out what's really working, and is the guy really there with us. And why, again, it's important from a payments bank business perspective is that in a world where you don't want to offer too many cashbacks to people, then if you repeat usage, then clearly there is something that's working for you. It could be ease of the platform, simplicity, personalization, or just the fact that when this customer who could be first time digital was starting a journey, somebody handheld her. And that's how they're now more comfortable with one brand vis-a-vis the other. So something or the other that works. So I think we've got that parameter down to a very, very simple level. If I were to break it across the funnel, then the top funnel where people kind of come in. So I know how many came in, and as you said, right, 73% bounce away and don't do anything with the brand. So again, somebody who's come and made the effort of searching us and let's say downloading the app. So what percentage of that actually goes ahead and registers or starts something? That becomes an important parameter, because again, it's quite a surrogate for somebody who's at least convinced about the brand story. So that's easy on the top part of the funnel. On the or an existing customer who has a bank account and is now using the app becomes another good parameter in that sense. Then of course down the funnel it's always usage. So keeping it very, very simple and using usage as I wouldn't even say surrogate, I mean, as an absolutely spot on metric, because the consumer always has too many options in life. So
correct.
If he's unhappy with me, the guy just has to switch, and switching costs may not be very high when it comes to more basic things, home loans, etc. It's difficult, but the other products like paying a bill or transferring money, switch. So that's how we view it.
Great. Thank you, Anand, for the insights. I'll move to Ram. Ram, your category is in an acquisition, spree, if I may say, because there is customer acquisition happening from all sectors. What, in your view, how are you tracking your user behavior, and how important is being able to engage with users with what we call the real-time actionable insights?
Yeah, so we are basically new for everyone, right? And for us, one critical aspect, which is like it's a must-have, is having people educated about what they're doing, right? And it's very critical for us to move forward. So for us, when we are putting measures and checks, the first transaction is most likely going to be a trial. They are testing out the product, they're trying to understand the asset. The second transaction is where they are slightly more confident. But we basically try to measure whether someone is, say, investing in more than one asset, right? So there is a simple rule that we have seen from our analytics. Once someone starts investing in more than one crypto asset, it could be Bitcoin, Ethereum, any of these assets, if they start diversifying their portfolio, they have started understanding and they've started realizing the value of each one of them. So for us, it's very critical that we find out a true customer or a very happy customer is someone who's able to understand the market, understand the asset class, and start thinking about it from an investment perspective. And it gives us good cues on what they are doing on the product and how they are thinking. And in one way also how they are drawing content out of our various platforms to understand and learn more. So for us, yes, we are in a phase where we are introducing this asset to everyone, and we are hence in the mode of acquisition. But our measures are more around whether someone has really understood this, because for us, the long-term game is if people understand what they are doing, it's much more likely that they will invest more, they'll retain more, and so on. That's the thought process that we have.
Great. Thank you, Ram. I'll move to Rahul. Rahul, what has been your experience with fintech players in terms of challenges in onboarding and retaining customers?
Okay, yeah. So, we've had the good fortune of working with people from different fields, right? And that experience has revealed a lot, right? And something that Ram also mentioned sort of caught my attention earlier. So, for us, when customers and when we speak to our clients, we're trying to understand their growth and retention challenges, right? What are the problems you are facing today? Why are you facing these challenges? What's really hindering you as, let's say, a marketeer or a product manager inside, let's say, a fintech or a bank or XYZ company, to be able to do better retention with your users, right? Why are users leaking out of the bucket? So some of the challenges that we hear often and we are able to discover is, one, the biggest challenges in terms of data silos, right? So when we go in, we notice user data lies all over the place, right? There is one system that's tracking X, there's another system that's tracking Y, and there's a third system that's sending out emails, there's a fourth system that's communicating with the users over some other channel. So what we find as a core challenge that is sort of not allowing our clients or prospective clients to be able to work in this space is the data silos and the collection of tools that people typically collect over a period of time and try to stitch together. The other is just making sense of the data, right? I mean, again, just same point that Ram made earlier about how they were able to find a certain specific user behavior by noticing the data, right? Week on week, month on month retention and repeat user behavior. We have found that very few folks are able to actually do that kind of analysis, and that's very useful, right? Because that helps you discover a repeated pattern in your user behavior. So the other challenge that we find is just this ability to make sense of the data that you're collecting about your users and make it actionable, right? Which brings me to my third point, right? Let's say you're doing a really good job and you have a lot of good data, but then the other challenge is, now what do I do with this data? How do I convert this into some sort of an action, right? We found that marketers typically struggle with saying, hey, you know what? I know what I want to send to my user. I know what kind of a campaign I want to do, or what kind of an offer I want to send out to my user. Or I know that there's a festival coming up, so I should do something to my user. But who should I sort of do that campaign on? Why should I do that campaign? Or what kind of a message might work with this cohort of users with another cohort of users? So making that analytics actionable is a big challenge. It's not easy. It's not a solved problem completely, and it's a continuous work in progress. So that's the third sort of challenge that we sort of see very commonly.
Correct. It's a continuous work in progress. Thank you, Rahul, for this insight. But I'll again go to each one of you with one very quick question. If you were to list one or two special hooks that might help you in getting, retaining your customers, what would that be? What are the hooks that we can evaluate in case of retaining customer? Ram, we'll start with you.
So for us, as I said, right, education is the key, right? 3 assets. Right. And also, so once you decide or once you discover such a retention piece, right, one important aspect is we should enable users to discover it rather than put in a bias by, say, pushing people to, why don't you invest in these 3 assets, right? Or create a product solution which enables people to do that. So avoiding that is critical. So building products or building features on the product that allow the users to take that call, right? So focus has been on that. Focus has been on ensuring that there is a long-term value available. And the other aspect, because everyone today, or I would say at least 99% of them, are still trying to figure out what this entire category is all about. Producing and distributing the relevant content pieces, I feel, is a very critical aspect for us, because people are still trying to understand, trying to discover. So these two aspects, I would say, are the hooks.
Anand, your answer? So what can keep customers hooked to the platform?
So for us, it's always simplicity. So keeping it very, very easy for that guy to be able to figure out that one transaction he or she wants to do. And the second one for us across is language. So because English is not the preferred language of choice for most of our consumers. So ensuring that we are able to give him actionable stuff, even in, let's say, at least 2 or 3 other languages, becomes a very, very important hook for us. So that's
correct.
For us, which are important.
I'll move to Rahul. Rahul, what's your view?
I feel that it's really important that every fintech BFSI brand can make some sort of a, mapping or chart, in very simplistic terms, of what value their users are getting out of the platform, right? So user may come to a particular platform for one activity or 2 activities. Some are transactional, some are long term, right? Some are more sort of over a period of time, they extract more and more value. But there are some really simple transactional value, items that they're trying to get out of the platform. And that's really, if you can think of the term being value graphics, right? We talk about customers' demographics, but there's also value graphics, right? What are the values this customer really wants from our platform? If you're able to design your hooks around that, that really helps. So very simple example is, when I book an Uber and I open the Uber app, and my car is maybe 5 or 10 minutes away, it shows me exactly on my home screen what I need to see at that moment of time. Or if I've booked a movie ticket and I'm on my way to the movie theater, then what do I really care about at that point? I care about maybe buying some popcorn for when I reach, or maybe what time a movie starts and the QR code that I need to scan. I don't really care about what other movies you're showing on the platform. So really every brand should figure out what is that 1 or 2 things in that moment of time that the user might actually want out of the platform, and really surfacing that, right? Be it, let's say, a DTH payment reminder or whatever, right? That's really what I feel is the kind of hooks that people or brands can build into place.
Correct. Great insights, Rahul. What are the hooks that you can use to retain customers?
So I think retention, it's always the basics that work, right? It's not very different from other platforms, I would say. But I think on retention, just ensuring that you know the kind of consumer you're talking to, and nudging them with either offers or new product innovations in the zone or the category they are looking to shop for is always a good thing. So segmenting people by interests, segmenting people by need, and actually talking to them specifically to those needs. I think that content consumption is a huge thing at this point of time. So if our apps or our interfaces or our storefronts can become more gamified, to sort of ensure and sort of take on the mantle of helping people with the content. Today, if you look at even the Amazon, Flipkart interfaces, they are more gamified to the extent that people want to come back and check what are the offers, what are the deals, what is today's sort of thing that I want to go in and look at. I think that's a very, very important hook to people coming back to your platform. There has to be a certain gamification built in to say that, hey, if I go to this particular app, I will get the best deal on X or Y or Z. You get known for something like that. And I think building that is important, build stickiness on the interface as well. So I think basics of understanding the consumer, knowing what they want and sort of giving them what they want is one. But I think even some level of stickiness built into the product and interface itself to ensure that people keep coming back, is important. And these are all solved problems by the likes of giants like Google and Facebook and Instagram and all of that. I think how do we sort of take those learnings and apply them to our, industries?
Great.
The third thing that's slightly underrated and free is email, which some brands manage to use extremely well. And I think it really is about cracking that code. Of course, there's a technical code of getting into your primary inbox and so on and so forth. But how do you constantly sort of also innovate so that people want to open your emails? And some brands have managed to crack that. So I think taking a leaf out of that, and leveraging our own asset, which is our email, is also interesting if we do it the right way, and not just keep spamming people and it going into junk. So I think that's really what are the three things that come to mind in terms of retention.
Great. Thank you, Aishwarya. Gamifying non-gaming, properties is becoming a key asset to ensure retention. And you mentioned gamification. That's great. Anand, I'd move to you. So, how are you solving this challenge, retaining customers and increasing LTV, which has again become very important? What is the retention strategy that is deployed by you at your organization?
So that's actually a very, very good question, because as a bank, we offer a subscription bank account. So people has a certain amount of money every year to keep renewing that account, and we've had good traction over there. Our tool is largely analytics, because as I said that there is just we really, really can't afford to keep incentivizing them with money. So we have certain ML models that run exactly whom to go after, when, and very, very importantly, we start getting a sense of, the likelihood of conversion almost, 5-6 months before the due date really comes in. So that allows us some little intervention of driving, a little more traction on the platform, getting this person to transact a bit to ensure that the person sees value. So for us, retention and hence customer lifetime value really, really goes hand in hand. And that's done largely by constantly tapping which segment, what's the probability, do I nudge this guy now for a bill payment or for a particular kind of transaction, so that at least this improves. So whatever I can get, if the guy buys into me without me having to keep paying him for it, is essentially a strategy and working very well given the retention rates that we've managed to reach.
Great. Thank you, Anand. I'll move to Deepak. Deepak, we were asking a set of questions which I think you missed because of the internet issue. Wanted to understand from you what are the various that you can use to retain customers.
So I think essentially what we have learned is that what matters is relevance rather than just blindly communicating to customers. So we do data mine a lot of your transactions to understand what your needs are. Do you want to invest right now, or do you want to borrow right now? Are two diametrically opposite mindsets that people are in, and we need to, as a bank, figure out which one are you in right now. Right? If you go to a person who has too much money and say, "Sir, will you take a loan?" They will get turned off. They will say, "This bank does not understand me at all," and that's the impression that is left behind with people for a long time. Right? So relevance is what keeps you as a brand and the association people have with you is in a positive sort of sphere, right? So relevance before you communicate is what keeps you as a brand seem intelligent, seem that you care about the customer, and that you will service them well. So relevance is the biggest part of our sort of core KRAs. We want to ensure we understand all your data, all your transactions, and anything that we can glean from you, and then put it into like data science platform, so on and so forth. The intent is there to be relevant. Wow, this company has realized that I need this, and that I just got this right now. That's when they feel they're close to you as a customer, and that brand cares about you.
Thank you, Deepak, for the insight. I'll move on to Rahul. So, Rahul, how does retention add to the overall scaling of the brand? What's your answer based on the interactions that you have had across the spectrum?
Yeah, no, this is a really interesting topic, right? Because when we talk to various brands and we do our own research, we found some really shocking stats, right? We've seen numbers like 90% users being lost in the first 3 months after they either install your app or register for your service, touch your brand for the first time, right? Or we've even seen our customers quote things like, "Hey, it's costing me at least 10x or 15x more to acquire a new customer compared to retaining an existing one," right? When they do a like-to-like analysis, right? So some really shocking numbers and really insightful numbers that we've heard from folks that we speak to. why we believe that we've seen a shift in our own clients and in the industry in general, paying a lot more attention to retention. You'll now, if you start combing job platforms like Naukri and all, you'll start to seeing people are naming retention marketing as a skill, right? Because it is a skill. It's something that people used to not really care about a few years ago, but it's actually becoming really important because of the kind of stats that I was talking about earlier. Brands are now starting to put a lot more focus on ensuring that every user that is acquired is given a relevant experience, like Deepak mentioned, right? Which is extremely important, and it's the biggest lever we've also seen our customers deploy. So that's how brands are now sort of building a new function out, building a center of excellence, building the right kind of data sets in place, because it all starts with data, right? So the brands we know who are doing this well are the ones that have learned how to master their own data, right? And the ones where data is all over the place and they're not able to sort of unify the data and get it in one place and make some sense out of it, everything downstream from that, which is all your segmentation strategies, all your engagement strategies, may not be as effective. So we've seen that retention that is practiced well by our brands, customers who have done well, they are putting good use to the data. They are using that to bring more relevance to their users in the experience that they have with mobile apps or websites or even offline touch points, right? Retention is all about, it's not just about your digital storefront or your digital touch point. It's about across your entire brand. Wherever I'm touching the user or wherever I'm sort of interacting with the user, am I able to leverage that data that I have to give that user a contextual experience? So that's been our experience working with our clients.
Great. Aishwarya, from you, I would like to know, I mean, what are the essentials for you to ensure higher lifetime value, and how do you engage with your customers once the transaction is closed? So, the loan has been repaid and then, but he or she remains your customer even then. So what's the mode of engagement with those customers?
So I think higher engagement only happens. See, I think while we can do a lot of things for higher engagement and higher LTV, it only happens when we provide a great experience, right? And I'm saying people from established organizations would sort of echo this as much as, if we give a great experience to the user and we provide tangible value to the user, is when they keep coming back to us. And that's what we've seen in all of our consumer who have come back, right? They have meaningfully sort of been able to afford something or upgrade their lifestyle to a point, and Zest money is the one that enabled that upliftment or that upgradation, right? And those are the ones that keep coming back and transacting. So I think that that lifetime value is provided when you provide value to the consumer in a way that is meaningful to them. That's the clear principle for sure. And just to sort of add back to that, I think that meaningfully, even transactions which are for even a pay in 3 or digital finance at a larger scale, higher value transactions are what you need for getting a pay in 3 scale. Like a Swiggy order split into 3 is meaningless, right? I mean, like, so even the use cases that you go after and the kind of use cases you sort of try to target should be longer and more meaningful ones to the user, so that they keep coming back and saying that, I managed to go on this trip to Maldives instead of Goa, as an illustrative example, or I managed to get an iPhone versus something else, as an illustrative example, right? And that's when you see value. So I think that's the principle that we try to follow, even in the way we sort of acquire customers, the means in which we acquire customers, and the way we retain them. For us, our big allies in doing this are our merchants and partners themselves, right? So, I mean, a lot of the decisions get made in the store as to how you're going to fund your purchase. So if you see a particular offer, I mean, we do it ourselves, right? If there's an ICICI offer, we'll take out our ICICI card and pay versus an HDFC card. Similar when we sort of go up offline to shop as well. If we're getting a good deal at the store, we'll sort of do it. And there our merchants are our huge allies in that front, right? In helping swing loyalty to us as well, where they say that, have you heard of this? Why don't you use this instead? Kind of a thing. And if we manage to leverage that and then add on the great experience that we provide, lifetime values and repeats happen as a consequence of this, I feel. And then people think of us when it comes to transacting larger, when they want to do up their home, they want to have their, a Diwali purchase, they want to travel, so they think of us. So I think that's how we've managed to build it out, keeping fundamentals strong on this front. That's how I would sort of define this piece, Anirban.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Aishwarya. I'll bring Ram into this conversation here. Rahul mentioned one key to mastering, retention is ability to eliminate data silos. Are you able to manage that and to, are you able to manage that and get unified view of your users? I mean, collating data at one unified platform.
So it is a necessity. We have to do it, no choice. More so for us because our transaction platforms and the interaction methods are all digitals. We need to ensure that we don't get stuck in these silos. We have been heavily investing in analytics over the last couple of years. Our industry, like many of us, goes through a bullish and a bearish run, more prominently for us. And as an organization, we started when the cycle was bearish for us. So we had to actually basically get every ounce, right? So we had to invest a lot in data, build those structures, build those pillars. Are we there yet? No. Obviously not. We need to still build a lot more. Over the last 1.5 years, we have actually seen a tremendous growth, which means that we have also seen a tremendous amount of data piling in. So we need to also study this much better. The structures and the processes that we have built seem to be working, but we can definitely go on improving that, because we have now seen a set of customers who are completely fresh and very difficult for us to draw analogies and draw inferences based on that analogies. So a lot of studies at our end we need to work on, and it is very critical for us. As mentioned by almost all the panelists, it is difficult for a product based company like us to focus a lot more on retention, and data is one of the biggest keys to that puzzle, right? So we have to do it.
Correct. It's a necessity. It's not optional. Thank you, Ram, for bringing that point. As much as I would like to continue this chat, we're at the last phase of our discussion today, and I have time for just one question to each one of you, which I'll call the concluding remarks. In today's rapidly evolving market, do you see more and more brands deploying retention strategies to grow their business and strengthen their loyal customer base? I mean, as you mentioned, Ram, it's necessity, but what's next? Like, do you see it becoming more prominent? I'll start with you.
Yeah, so it's a no-brainer that you need to build products for customers who want to use it again and again, right? I'm not sure about everyone on this call, but there is this an ice cream guy called Rustamji in Bombay, right? And if you go there any time of the day or probably in the evenings, you'll see a massive crowd there, right? And hardly anything that the person does and has a single product that he sells, right? Multiple flavors, single product, and ice cream, and there's always a huge crowd, right? So he has, or the company has built a strong retention hook there, and I feel that's it's not just solving the acquisition piece or just getting people through the door. You're actually building for customers who will use your product over the years. So the idea is more about building solutions which are in an automated fashion, building products which people would want to use, right? And that's probably the biggest key to profitability, because once there is a repeat cycle, people are generally loyal to your brand. So yeah, that's my view.
Great. Retention is key to profitability. Thank you, Ram. It was a pleasure having you in this discussion. Anand, your answer to this question: do you see more businesses, investing in retention strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. As even Rahul said, right? I mean, increasingly you're seeing folks hiring people for retention. So it's no longer a choice. I mean, it was never a choice. even in the times when certain industries went through boom periods, and whether it was insurance, lending, or whatever the case may be, retention was never, it was always mandatory in that sense. And obviously it will only increase because the choices available to your consumers are increasing every day, right? So if it's easy for him or her to make a choice and opt out or away from you, you're in trouble. So obviously, hence every brand realizes that, and unless you're in a monopoly, you won't worry. But today, practically barring IRCTC and maybe one or two brands here and there, no monopoly exists, right? I mean, other than if you're Eno or something like that. So no options, man. Invest heavily and reap the dividends.
Exactly. Invest heavily and reap the dividends. Thank you, Anand, for your insights. Deepak, your view on this in today's rapidly evolving market? Do you see investment into retention strategies of significant importance?
See, if you're a lender, it's very alarming, right? Because what happens in lending is that you can tell how many people who have accounts with you have taken a loan outside of your organization, because there are agencies like bureaus, like a civil trust union, for example, will tell you exactly how many of your customers have gone out and taken a loan outside of your bank, right? For a lender, for a bank, it is obviously complete non-negotiable, and it is the alarm. Or when data comes into play, you are actually able to figure out how many of your customers have gone outside and purchased the product, which possibly is not really possible in any other industry. But I think it is, yes. So when you see such numbers and such data coming at you, you have no choice but to just invest, like getting that data in, and then figuring out these customers who are possibly on the fence and maybe slightly disloyal with you. How are you going to treat them? How are you going to service them? And how are you going to ensure that they think of you as their preferred financial solutions partner, being HDFC Bank? Right. So the reality is very, very stark in banking and lending, especially. You know exactly where you stand, and we have to work very, very hard.
Thanks, Deepak. Aishwarya, your view on this? Investment into retention strategies to ensure strength and ensure retention and strengthen your loyal customer base.
The industry is at a stage where both are important. I wouldn't say one or the other, because we still have a huge untapped market of acquisition. And like I said earlier, right at the beginning, right, the fintech is exploding. The divide between the haves and the have-nots is sort of it's getting bridged at this point of time, right? And so I think that it's not a hard choice between one or the other, to be honest. I mean, it's a crime if we sort of acquire customers and we have a leaky bucket. That is not, of course, on, right? So while we acquire customers, retention is equally important, and ensuring that we are not just acquiring customers and they're going to the next fintech for the next transaction. That's not the idea. But I wouldn't say that it's just purely a retention game or an acquisition game. Some industries have reached that phase where retention is the name of the game. I don't think fintech is there by a mile yet, right? I think acquisition is as important, but acquiring the right kind of consumers for the right transactions is what I would lay emphasis on. And retention of these customers, and having very clear metrics on what our lifetime value should be, how we look at CAC in the context of lifetime value, and actually sort of developing those models for it so that it's a profitable transaction. Everyone is a profitable transaction is what, I would look at focusing on. Yeah, that's really what my take is.
Great. No point acquiring customers when you have a leaking bucket. Rahul, I'd like to end with you. You sit at the other end of the spectrum where you ensure that no bucket is actually leaking. Your view to end this session today.
Thanks, and an awesome example, Ram. I love the Rustam ice cream, Rustam ice cream, it's called, right? So a really good example of how they've been managed to retain their customers and users, right? I think the problem gets very, very pronounced as the brand starts to hit scale. It's not as pronounced at a smaller scale. And once what we've seen in our client base is, as our customers are scaling up, the sort of gap between how much more value they can extract from their existing users versus what they're actually doing increases a lot as the scale goes up. And it's a very hard problem to solve. So retention absolutely needs that focus, because unless you can start today and start experimenting with different retention strategies and different retention methodologies, it's going to take you months and months of tweaking to reach a point where you are happy with the way retention, and you'll never be, but you'll at least need to see significant progress. So I don't think it's a very easy problem to solve. It requires a lot of effort and experiment. It requires an experimentation mindset on its own, because as you have so many users, you have so much data coming in, it's just all over the place. Which problem to focus on with what sort of lens, that's really the name of the game.
Thank you very much for summing it up so articulately. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Ram. Thanks, Deepak. Thanks, Aishwarya. Thanks, Anand, for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you all. It was great doing this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.